to everybody. Good afternoon to everybody. Good evening to everybody. That's 7 a.m. in Lviv, Ukraine, and in Honolulu, it's 6 p.m., where our guest is from. Hello, Bradley.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bradley Foster is our today's guest. He is principal agile consultant and product owner at Worth Agility. And I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Katriana. I so much appreciate it. And, we had a little bit of meeting beforehand. So, I think we're both very enthusiastic and, Symphony Solutions is definitely going in the right direction from all I can tell. But as you said, I've been background in agile, digital transformation, and technology strategies with companies. So I was really interested to join this discussion, especially after looking at all the accomplishments of Symphony Solutions. Yeah.
Oh, great to hear. Thank you so much. So you have already overcome a little bit my question. I've been wondering, you are in agile communities in agile world for so long. How did it come to you that you decided to go into that way? What
Yeah,
made
yeah, no, thank you for asking. So I'm realizing that I'm an engineer by education. So I'm always trying to solve problems, good or bad, but looking for the next best solution. So I started off at the Boeing company where I started off in software quality assurance and inspecting quality into product. And I don't mind saying that because they've completely changed their processes by now. But that was my first introduction to say, oh, I'm not really adding value. What can I do to add value? They sent me to Carnegie Mellon for the capability maturity model for processes. So, oh, okay, I'll put this in my toolbox. And went on in various roles of business analyst, project manager, software developer, database development, architect. Applying these different ways, like many of the great thinkers in the agile space have. There's so many of those individuals, but and I'm just aspiring to be one at some point. But so through really looking at organizations and how they're operating and how they could operate differently, I got my project management certification, so I had that toolbox, as framed as it is. But then I started consulting with an organization that they were organizationally agile, so from the ground up.
Mhm.
So I didn't have the skills. I'd only read about it, so I started with a Scrum Master cert, and then got some practice. And then I realized after about 3 projects, there's still so much more. So I'm actually taking a step back along with many others to say there's Scrum, there's things that work in team environments, but there's so much more. So, from several teams in software development to organizational, and then using that in across organizations. Business agility is what we call it, right? So so just excited to make the transition, and it just seemed like the next best step. So getting into agile through Scrum, but now I'm taking a step back because I think a lot of people are lost in the definition of agile. They think because we're using this tool we're agile, or because we have a team we're agile. But as you and I both know, agile is a mindset.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I really have to get my head around this. Yeah.
Yeah. I do understand your path just because I when I started, that was me. When I started with Scrum first rather than Agile first, which would be more logical, more far better way. But well, okay, it happens to some people when they start with Scrum and then cross back to Agile and start getting all those values and changing their mindset, uh, vice versa, rather than it was supposed to be. Cool, interesting approach. But it reflects me, so I do understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's probably more common than not. And,
Mhm.
it's interesting, Katriana, is that I gave a presentation to a project management chapter not too long ago. And the
Mhm.
title was Unlocking Agility, basically, and Transformation. So it wasn't like this is an introduction to Agile. And
Mhm.
I did pre-survey, and the majority of the people said that we really know what Agile is.
Mm-hmm.
But they post the reviews, very successful presentation. Most of them were going, oh yeah, I guess I don't know Agile because you were talking about things that I didn't even know of. And this was a lunch and learn, so it wasn't a lot of time, but based on the response, people were saying, oh, I'm Agile. Oh, okay, well, let's talk Agile then.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, oh, I love that aha moment when people go, oh, you mean I have to give up that command and control? I have to collaborate. I
Mhm.
don't just create a plan in a vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all because Agile Manifesto is pretty limited, and Agile principles are just 12 of them. It's not like a 600 pages long book where you can read and know everything about Agile and become Agile. But it's
Exactly.
because of different interpretations. And I remember, at least in Ukrainian environment, people usually speaking about project management, they say traditional one. And
Waterfall.
Agile is not traditional one. Comparing waterfall and agile, but it has been so long ago when people have been trying to understand and implement and get all that agile vision. When can we start talking about agile as traditional? What do you think?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what's funny because you and I talked a little bit about kind of the course of this conversation, and there's people doing it from the ground up. I personally, because I'm passionate about efficiency and
Mhm.
have worked in environments early on where, oh man, this is taking way too long, and we're building quality into it versus or inspecting quality into it versus building quality. So where to start? It really does come from within. It's a mindset, and it empowers people. So you and I are thinkers. Symphony Solutions or think outside the box, and it's creating. It's funny because I'm actually spending some time, with some podcasts, understanding neuroscience, how
Mhm.
people are programmed, and knowing that. And this is a great presentation. Symphony probably even uses this, but when people get programmed one way, they think, oh, okay, you can't teach a dog new tricks. I don't know if you use that in Ukraine, but you can. No, you
Mhm.
totally can, especially human. Oh, you've been doing it this way, but let's convince you or show you the most positive ways of actually, and I'm showing this, but actually branching out where you're using the knowledge that you have, but you're building on it with this new way of thinking, where you're thinking of your customer, you're thinking of the development, you're thinking of the efficiencies in between,
Mhm.
you're living the painful projects that took forever or that became dustware and were never
Yeah.
delivered, right? So
Yeah.
it really comes from here and here, where it's not like the PMBOK or SAFe where, oh, okay, I need to do this at this point. I mean,
Mhm.
that's all well and good, and it applies to certain organizations. There's no right way or wrong way of doing,
Mhm.
there is a wrong way of doing Agile. Anything that's outside the scope of a mindset. But yeah, does that kind of get you, what do you think about that?
I would actually agree with you. It's always interesting to communicate about that matter with more experienced one, just because when I'm asking this, I feel that I'm way too behind the persons I'm talking to, and it's always interesting to observe your vision. So that's why thank you so much for sharing it, and thank you so much for making me richer in understanding of Agile. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely, and I mean just to use my experience, so in Hawaii we say Hawaii, but everything continental United States is mainland. So
Mhm.
coming to Hawaii, Hawaii tends to do things more conservatively and more traditional waterfall,
Mhm.
and that gets back to the conversation I had last week where there's still a lot of room for growth here,
Mhm.
but getting people's head around, where do you start? You can start with an individual and then not even use the terminology to create, an agile motivation, but more importantly, the most successful implementations are going to come from the top down. And there's great thought leaders out there that have the experience that are branching out and just, kind of prophesizing about not like a big five consulting organization, but some of the individuals that are tried and true saying, you know what, as a business leader, as a technology leader, this is really where you need to start. We need to get our heads around it so we can set the goals, the scope, the intentions, the value for the entire organization.
Mhm. Yeah, cool. So, coming back to our preliminary agenda, so you have already shared about some trends that you observe in Agile nowadays. Could you summarize a little bit more? What are the ones?
Absolutely, and thank you for asking, because again, coming from traditional project management, for example, and if you're strictly developing software, let's just look at it from that perspective. I've worked several programs where information, was InfoSec, now it's DevOps, and now it's DevSecOps, right? So with that being said, those are just, extended parts of the family. And given my background in business intelligence, I'll segue slightly, but in business intelligence, you're always reaching out to the customer. You're understanding, what the needs are, and then you're bringing that back to the team or integrating the team. But the team is the entire, IT, let's say. So, my first exposure to InfoSec was a large company where they basically came to the table, but they said, "Well, you guys develop your software and then give it to us, and we'll critique it for you." And I go, "No. We're going to do this agile, and we're very collaborative. So we want you on up front so you can tell us." But it was interesting because it was an analogy of who moved my cheese. Because no, we just wait. So it was kind of like what I was introduced to, telling you earlier, where I was inspecting quality in. We would give them software, and I said, no, I've lived this, I've watched this movie before, and it's not a good one.
Yeah.
So please work with us up front, even if we're working incrementally, to understand what your requirements are going to be as part of that DevSecOps team. So expanding that beyond that. And then again, really big right now is the value stream mapping. What does that entire value stream look like? We're not just looking at a product in a bubble or in a silo. We're looking at that the whole value stream from what the customer is looking for or what we're looking to market. So agile is just it really is. Once you've drank the Kool-Aid, and maybe that's an old term, but and not a very good one at that, but once you become passionate about the possibilities, you can work with HR and marketing and the various other organizations to say, hey, you've got your own internal teams, so we'll touch upon that, kind of throughout here, I bet, on our conversation.
If to speak about DevOps, I do really like how it is complementary to Agile, when with all their principles, like people over process over tools. In Agile Manifesto, we have a little bit different connotation on this one, but here it sounds even more advanced for me. So that's why I do understand what you're talking about regarding DevSecOps. But speaking about value stream mapping, hasn't it always been with Agile being followed like on the same path? Isn't that supposed to be so?
Well, you know what? And it's funny. I'm glad you ended with "it's supposed to be," because it's like, hey, when you say reasonable sense or common sense, I think Mark Twain said there's no such thing as common sense. There's reasonable sense. So, yeah, you and I think isn't that always part of it? But if you're a developer, I've met any number of developers that just say, "Give me the requirements," or, "You know what? I know what they want, so I'm going to code it. Here, give this to them." So yeah, value stream is something that it's not new. It's not new at all, but it's not conceptualized necessarily across the whole team. So if you, as an agile leader, coach, a scrum master, business analyst, product owner, in whatever role you're playing, you're being inclusive to the team to say, look, let's because right, we're all playing on the same field. We want to know what the opponent looks like. We want to know how we work as a team, and this is what we're doing as a team, right? So value stream, yeah, you would think it was always part of the organization's intention, but I'm not sure that it's always completely looked at from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, right?
Okay, so as far as I understand, we may assume that DevSecOps, value stream mapping, all those values combined with Agile will continue transforming Agile. And what might it look like in the future with all these current trends going on?
Yeah, and you know, you say current trends. With me, I've been pretty uh, diligent about AI. You know, I mean, I haven't done any true engineering forever, so it's maybe taking a little while for my brain to adapt. But AI is really yeah, going to change things for the better, assuming you know the intentions are good. Obviously, there's things that could go wrong, and then there's ways of underutilizing it. I've been in events where the speaker is talking about, look, you can create a project charter. Look, you can
Mhm.
create a statement of work. And I'm going, yeah, that's fine, but you could do that with a template, you know, from Google or from your company's, you know, standard
Mhm.
practices, right? So the thing is, you dump that into, you know, you digitize all that, and then all of a sudden you're doing, you know, as an individual, you know, in various forms, you're doing analytics on, you know, on those templates, for example, or on that information that you're providing. So I've created, and I'll share it with you afterwards, but I created a kind of an infographic for how agile project managers can use AI, because I was a little bit frustrated with an event where the person was just talking about doing this, but the first thing I'm thinking is, oh, those are all just templates. You're
Yeah.
completely underutilizing, right? You know, you can create user stories, you know, assuming that you know you've prompted it correctly, and I don't want to get into all that. I'm not sure how far you've come, but those are things that, you know, maybe Symphony is going to be looking at, or does already, you know, saying this is our tool suite and AI is part of it, you know, whether it's the machine learning or the generative AI or the natural language processing, but
Mhm.
so many aspects, and it's exciting, you know. I mean, I feel like a kid again, where it's really inspiring me, you know, between agile AI and what is my last, it seems like I've got another thing, but you know, pretty much that's my go-to, you
Mhm.
know, kind of just saying how well they work together, agile and AI. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually speaking, I feel really with lots of anticipation of what might come with us using AI tools on our everyday work. Like, I can understand that we may delegate some trivial tasks to that one, but what then we will focus on, what would be deeper level of some understanding and so some kind of investigations of our piece of work as scrum masters, as agile coaches. So I would happily delegate AI preparation of some reports or so on. But instead of that time, what might be the new duties for scrum masters, for agile coaches, when all the trivial tasks might be partially or fully done by AI tools?
You know, as far as Scrum Masters go, you know, it's funny, because you know, I'm speaking to another group on business analysts, and I've done the
Mhm.
same thing for them to create an infographic to say, you know, how their job will change via AI if you utilize it. So, you know, from the beginning, you know, you know. You can, again, for me it's about analytics. So you know, you can strike baseline data, you know, based on you know, information that maybe you would have had to have done before. And that's not to say that the tools in the BI space, you know, as they were calling it, Tableau and Click and some of the other visualization tools, that they weren't doing it before. But how many project managers or scrum masters were doing that. I mean, I was like one of few that I knew of that was, okay, this is my data set, so I'm going to set up these queries. But through AI, I mean, it's much quicker than I'm going to do it. And, given the appropriate prompts, you can use it to anticipate, through NLP, you can give it parameters for personas of your team. Katriana is this, this, and this. Brad is this, this, and this. How to accomplish the best retrospective, for example. We've got Pavel, introduced as a developer, and he's been very difficult. So how can we get him to engage in the sprint planning, to be a little bit more vocal? So again, there's so many slices. I'm just kind of looking through my notes, but again, there's just so many ways. And again, you want to look at ways to things that were kind of mundane. I've shared the role of a product owner and a scrum master in some engagements. So I'm, scratching my head to create user stories or, kind of the vision. But most recently, a contract I'm on where I'm acting in the same role, I'm using AI to help create, user stories. And again, there's a lot of repetition in the data. So it's only as valuable as the question that you're asking it. It'll tell you what you want to hear, but is it telling you what you need to hear, right?
Yeah. Right. And speaking on AI tools, there are lots of them nowadays, but what concerns me most is for some of the tools, there is no AI in it. Even though they say or name it whatever.ai, there is no AI component in it. What kind of concerns have you got about AI and Agile?
Well, and it's funny because you and I have experienced that, and I'm sure Symphony has as well, where a company will say, hey, we want to implement Agile. We're almost there, but let's do it, and then you come aboard and you're using, we'll just say Jira, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, how are you using Jira? Well, we use it to, plug in, whatever, but we've programmed in these gates and whatnot. Well, you're kind of dismissing the value of Agile when you're empowering people, encouraging people to make decisions and explore. So, so it's kind of the same question. The way I'm thinking about it is, people are saying one thing, oh, it's AI, but are they selling a name, or are they selling value? And that's again, some of the drawbacks I see with Agile is that it's been oversold in some areas by name, but undersold in the value. And depending on, I'm spending so much time online, and if there were, it's funny, I value free speech, so it's interesting to see, oh, these people they're naysayers saying, is Agile dead? Why do stand-ups? Why do this? Why do that? Well, if you're implementing continuous learning and some of those other aspects that help you come closer as a team and collaborate as a team, you want to do some of these. But again, I think a lot of it gets lost. And I'm sorry to get too far off track here, but I think a lot of it gets lost in, this is Agile. Well, no, Agile is more about the values and principles if you're just doing these things, and then the mindset. A company that's marketing AI and not truly delivering AI, maybe it's a spell checker, because to tell you the truth, I was on a call this morning, and sometimes there's a language barrier, but this wasn't so much. The platform was in maybe Denmark. And the first question I asked, because they were talking about chatbots, I was asking them about their data and whatnot. And they said, oh, chatbots only, a small aspect of our entire platform. So even how they were messaging their platform versus what they were doing with it, I've got to go back and do some reading to going, well, so are you actually using AI, or are you just using chatbots, which, can be learning models, but there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of due diligence, right, to be done to really understand how people are branding or using AI, and selling AI.
Yeah. Finishing with AI, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think we need to move on to the last question for now. It's been so interesting to talk to you, and I even can't understand how time goes that fast
Yeah.
during our conversation. I am enjoying reading your posts on LinkedIn, and I see how much you are engaging Hawaii culture and Hawaii traditions and mixing them all with your experience, with your observations. And for example, those series of posts about three pillars of change: empowerment, collaboration, and innovation, including Hawaii context, has been impressing for me. It's just so amazing, and I would recommend everybody to read it.
Oh,
So speaking on Hawaii as a context, as the environment you are working in, how much it helps you, how much enriches you as a agile expert?
you mean there's a lot of ground to still cover in Hawaii, and that's really why I've kind of created that pivot. Um, and thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad it's not going for naught. But yeah, I'm hoping. Again, I'm considered Haole, so I'm not native Hawaiian, but they
Mhm.
call it a brown heart. So I have a deep appreciation for the Hawaiian culture, which is so unique. Geographically, I'm still a little bit lost with Ukraine as far as the most remote places, but Hawaii's got a very unique culture.
Mhm.
Um, and it needs to be nurtured into the kind of the agile way of thinking, and that so I'm trying to draw the similarities between how agile is very much adaptable to what Hawaii culture once was and is and can be, without being too intrusive or being too presumptive of using agile. It's kind of a different angle, as I mentioned. There's a lot of room for growth. So I'm going to learn something. I think probably next month I'll be presenting this to another project management group, but it'll be interesting because I'll be making myself very vulnerable to say, this is how I understand Hawaii
Mhm.
culture. This is how I'm seeing it. What I know of agile. Please, feel free to
Yeah.
release the dogs and tell me, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm doing the best because it's such a rich culture. And again, you can use the Hawaiian culture as an organizational culture. Every organization is different, and that truly is an honest statement, as you know. Educational systems say we're unique, but well, if you're an education system, there's slight degrees of difference, but you're primarily in this space. But when we look at organizations, and that's what makes us either successful in our selling or implementation of agile, is considering all of those factors: the culture, the motives, the outcomes of an organization. So again, going back to I just kind of, that's an aha moment for me, looking at Hawaii as an organization that's very diverse.
Mhm.
So it's going to take a certain finesse and technique to be able to sell it that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, thank you for noticing that.
Cool.
uh,
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think we may finish here. So thank you so much for coming. Ola Hawaii. And thank you for this experience and joining us as a guest. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to join anytime. You're so pleasant to talk to, and I love what Symphony is doing. And again, thank you for having me.
Thanks a